All right, we are going to talk about the Pythagorean Theorem, and we've already discussed the fact that the Pythagorean Theorem, when most people think of it, they just think of a squared plus b squared equals c squared. I just want to make sure that you see how the letters are laid out. The hypotenuse, which is the longest side, is always across from the right angle. So it's kind of like the mouth of that, and that is always going to be c. So when you're looking at pictures, you want to make sure you're looking for the one across from the 90-degree angle. And if you're looking at just numbers, you're always going to be looking at the biggest one because C, the hypotenuse, is the longest side. All right, so you can look at the Pythagorean theorem in two ways. If a squared plus b squared equals c squared, then a triangle is a right triangle. All right, this is actually called the converse of the Pythagorean theorem, but I thought I would talk about it first. Converse just means you switched the order. So the actual Pythagorean theorem is if a triangle is a right triangle, then a squared plus b squared equals c squared. The converse, which is those two. So to test if something is a right triangle, you want to make sure that a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. We can find c because it's the longest side. Here, the longest side. Okay. So you're just going to say, okay, well, is 6 squared plus 8 squared equal to 10 squared? And if it is, it's a right triangle. 6 squared is 36, 8 squared is 64, and 10 squared is 100. 36 plus 64 is 100, and therefore, yes, this is a right triangle. Right? Check this one yourself, pause the video, try it, and then play the video to check your answer. All right, so let's check. 3 squared plus 8 squared equals 9 squared. I don't know, let's see. Well, 3 squared is 9, and 8 squared is 64. 9 squared is 81. 9 plus 64 is 73. That is not equal to 81, so no. This is not a right triangle. All right. Now let's look at the actual Pythagorean theorem. If a triangle is a right triangle, then a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So in this one, here is our missing side, the hypotenuse. So we know that that's going to go where the c goes. The Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. A and b are interchangeable. So 8 squared plus 13 squared equals x squared. 8 squared is 64. 13 squared is 169. And that is going to equal x squared. 169 plus 64 is 233. That equals x squared. And how do you find x when it's squared? You take the square root of both sides. Remember to keep it balanced. Now, when you take the square root of an integer or a whole number, then the answer is really positive and negative of that. But since we're talking about distances, we need to only look at the positive answers. X equals, you could easily type into your calculator the square root of 233 and it will give you the answer. But I know that 233 is between 225, which is a perfect square, and 16 squared, which is 256. Okay, 225 is pretty close over here to 15, or 233. So I am going to think that this might be like 15.3 or so. So x is approximately 15.3 units long. All right, let's look at another one. All right, here we have what's called an isosceles triangle. We know it's isosceles because two of the sides are the same. This side and this side. That's what those little marks mean. They mean those are the same distance. So if we wanted to know how long that side is, it's 24. when you're looking at a picture that's not just a right triangle, you kind of want to focus on half of it, whichever part is a right triangle. We know for sure this is a right triangle because there's a right angle here, which means that that one is also a right angle. Also, a special thing about isosceles triangles is that the height of it bisects the base. It's actually a perpendicular bisector, meaning it forms a 90-degree angle. But right now, we just think it's important that it bisects the base. Bisect means cut in half. So that means that this piece here is 11, and this piece here is also 11. So do you see our little right triangle that we have hanging out right here? I'll draw it separately because I like to do that. All right, so we know this part is 11. We do not know this part, and this part is 24. All right, so now we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, to figure out the missing piece. This time we know the hypotenuse. We know a or b, doesn't matter, and we can do the math. I'll pull up a calculator real quick just to make this quicker. Okay, so 11 squared is 121. 24 squared is 576. Now we have the b squared with a constant on that side, so we need to subtract 121 from both sides. So b squared equals 576 minus 121. And again, we want to take the square root of both sides. The square root of 455 is 21.3, which is great because if we had gotten a number for this side, for where the x is, which I did not replace here, but the b's could have been x's all along. If this had been longer than 24, we would have been doing something wrong. All right, let's look at the next one. This one's a little confusing because the whole thing, we don't know if that's a right triangle. So we're really only going to be looking at it to try to figure out what's what. We have two pieces to figure out in order to figure out the length of the whole thing. That's called segment addition. These are both right triangles. So we could figure out the missing side of this one and then the missing side of this one. So let's look at the purple one. I'm going to call this y for now. Okay, so we have the hypotenuse is 14. So we have 12 squared plus y squared equals 14 squared. 14 being the hypotenuse of our purple triangle. Okay, 12 squared is 144. And 14 squared is 196. So we're going to solve this. The square root of 52. And we're going to use, I forgot to do it here, but we'll use these little squiggly equal signs to mean approximately. So the square root of 52 is approximately 7.2. So that helps with our purple triangle. Now we're going to do the yellow triangle. The yellow triangle, we again know the hypotenuse. We know one side is 12, one leg, but we don't know the other one. I'll call it z now. 12 squared is 144. And 29 squared I do not have memorized. 841. We're going to subtract 144 from both sides. 841 minus 144, 697. And then we want the square root of 697. So z is approximately 26.4 units long. So now we have that from here to here is 7.2. And from here to here is 26.4. And we just have to add those together. So 26.4 plus 7.2 is 33.6 units long. All right, so that's kind of a more challenging one where you have to put two pieces together. All right, we're going to quickly do 3 word problems, and then this video will be over. Find the length of a rectangle. So we're going to draw ourselves a little rectangle with a diagonal of 25 feet and a width, and it really doesn't matter which one, of 15 feet. Now we know that rectangles have 4 right angles, so we already know that we have a right triangle. We want to find the missing side. So again, we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem, 25 being the hypotenuse because it's across from the right angle and the longest side. 15 squared plus x squared equals 25. 225 plus x squared equals 625. Solve for x squared is 400, and take the square root of both sides, so x equals 20. This time I did not use the squiggly equal sign because we didn't have to round. It's a perfect number. All right, next one. I love these kind because I get to draw a picture. There's a wall. Here's a little brick wall. Okay, and we have a ladder leaning against the wall. If the base of the ladder is 8 feet from the wall, how high up the wall does the ladder reach? Well, we know from this that the ladder itself is 20 feet long. And this would be a right angle because it's the side of the building. So 20 is the longest, and it's across from the right angle. So that would be the hypotenuse. 8 squared plus x squared equals 20 squared. 64 plus x squared equals 400. Subtract 64. 336. And again, take the square root of 336, which is approximately 18.3 feet up the wall. All right, last one. George rides his bike. So he's on his bike and he goes 9 miles south, turns, and goes 12 miles east. And we want to know from where he started to where he ended, how far is he actually? And remember, distance is the shortest distance between 2 points. So we want to know this side, the hypotenuse. Since we don't know it, that's going to be over here. 9 squared plus 12 squared equals x squared. 81 plus 144 equals x squared. So 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22. And we take the square root of both sides. So this distance is 15. All right, I hope that helped you remember. Have a great day.